All right, welcome. It's bracket time. After all my analysis, this is the most disappointing bracket I've ever come up with, really in my lifetime. And I've been doing brackets for like 20 years for the NHL playoffs. A lot of favorites I have winning, and I feel like some of these matchups are so close. It could be very jumbled. I do also want to say that I am never correct with these. I'm usually pretty wrong. I think I sit around like maybe 70% correct, given the matchups. But yeah, let's dive into it. Starting off in the Atlantic, Florida, Tampa. I have Florida winning. Tampa, still some injuries. They might get off to a slower start. I think Florida can play any type of game. I think Florida is just the more talented team. With Florida, for me, it really depends on how their goaltending performs. They need Bobrovsky to be Bobrovsky, classic Bobrovsky. If he's not and Vasilevsky stands on his head, this could go Tampa's way. It should be a good series, but I think Florida is faster, more physical. I don't know, and has a little more scoring talent, right? Tampa still has Hedman out. I think Sorelli's still out. There's a bunch of guys. Sergachev, I don't think he's back yet. There are questions with Tampa. Boston, Toronto. This could be a good series. I could see this probably going, I don't know, um, maybe 6 or 7 games. My guess is six. I'm getting a spam call. That's wonderful. My guess is six. Boston, high powered defense. Toronto, high powered offense. We know this. I think Toronto has scored the most goals of anybody this year. Let me just double check that. Yep, Toronto, the only team to break 300 goals for this year. Boston, solid defense. So defense versus offense. Toronto struggles to play a team defense style and maintain scoring. It's either all defense or all offense from Toronto. They're going to be forced to play more of a defensive style against Boston. Boston, defensive, fairly boring style of defensive hockey, but it works. It's successful. Um, Toronto has difficulty transitioning that defense into offense. That's how they've been, not just this year, but the past several years. I'm not even diving into the mental hurdles that may be an issue with Toronto as well, should they get to a game 6 or 7. But nonetheless, I think this is the only series I would have Boston beating. If they played Florida or Tampa, I think I'd probably pick Boston to lose in the first round. But Toronto, I think it's an easy pick. I don't see much playoff success for them this year. Obviously, you never know. Toronto is a solid team, as are really any of these teams in the playoffs. It's anything could happen, so take it with a grain of salt. Out of the Atlantic, I have Florida, Boston lining up, and I think Florida, just as it was with Tampa, I think Florida is just a better team. I think Boston can sneak out a few games. I think they play Florida well. But Florida is just more deeper. They have a lot more scoring talent than Boston. Boston has had offensive struggles throughout the year. You have Krejci or not Krejci. You have Coyle and Zaka as your top two centers, and offensively the stats just aren't quite there to be your top two centermen. So I am concerned about Boston's offense when facing a team like Florida, and we know Bobrovsky plays well against Boston regardless. He can have an awful season. He's still playing Boston pretty well. So I have Florida coming out of the Atlantic, getting down to the Metropolitan Division. Rangers, Washington. I think this could be a sneaky good matchup. Rangers, President's Trophy winners. They're an absolute wagon. You have incredible defense. Fox, Lindgren, Keandre Miller, among others, right? Very, very solid defense, and they can put the puck in the net. They have a very skilled, talented forward group. My concern with them, I guess, is more or less on the physical nature of side, whereas Washington plays a very, very, very solid team defensive structure and very, very physical structure suited for the playoffs. Um, Charlie Lindgren, the goalie that should start for the Washington Capitals, has been solid. I'm not convinced he's can carry them all the way. I don't think he's that echelon above everyone else. Yes, I think he shut out Boston, but all the shots Boston took were really outside the slot. The defense really protected Charlie Lindgren. So, he's a great goalie. There's no doubt. He's definitely like probably top 10 ish in the league, but in terms of being the guy to carry a team all the way through to a Stanley Cup is unlikely. I don't know. I picked the Rangers just because the rosters are so different, and the Rangers have been on an absolute heater lately, whereas the Capitals are 4-4-2 in their last 10. They've won 3 in a row, but nonetheless, I think Washington will throw hissy fits for New Jersey, or not New Jersey, for the Rangers. But I think the Rangers are the better team. They have that experience, right? They have those deep runs, recent deeper-ish runs lately. Second round, I guess, is deep. Anyway, Carolina, New York Islanders. I think Carolina wins this pretty quickly. Islanders, solid defensive structure. But the Islanders this year have given up. The numbers are crazy for goals for and against. So the Islanders goal differential is a -17. The Islanders have had 246 goals scored for them this year versus Carolina's 279, right? So you're talking about a 33 goal differential right there. And then you get to the goals against. So the Islanders have given up 263 goals against, whereas the Hurricanes have given up 216 goals against. So those are massive differences. I do have concerns about I guess I don't know. The Carolina Hurricanes are just the better team. We'll see what happens with the defensive structure for the Islanders, but the Carolina Hurricanes also prioritize defense well. They're more of a defensive first team. But I think Carolina's offense has a little more potential to score a few more key goals. Not to say the Islanders don't have any offense. They've had some guys step up. I think Kyle Palmieri hit 30 goals this year. Right? They have Barzell. They have Horvat. They have an echelon of guys that can at least put the puck in the net. Brock Nelson. Right? But I have Carolina winning this. I think it'll be a quicker series. So Carolina, New York Rangers. This is going to be tough. I think the Rangers are probably the better team at the end of the day. For me, it really depends on what happens with these two teams in terms of their goaltending. Can Shesterkin stay hot? Can he keep producing at the rate he has in net? And who is your starter for Calgary? The Carolina Hurricanes. Is it Frederik Andersen? Does Pyotr Kochetkov take over that? Is he the starting goalie for Carolina? Right? I think it's going to come down to goaltending for some of these teams. But I have a feeling that Shesterkin is going to be pretty solid in the playoffs, whereas that's a big question mark for Carolina. And for me, given the offensive firepower of the Rangers, nonetheless, Carolina has good defense, but I think, the Rangers getting those grittier goals, Chris Kreider driving to the net, getting those David Backes styles goals, I think will work against Carolina. I think the Rangers might take this series. So finishing off the East, Florida, New York Rangers. This is why this is one of the more boring brackets I've done. I picked all the number 1 seeds. I didn't mean to do that. I never do that, but that's kind of how this worked out this year. And it's crazy because some of these matchups are so controversial. Like you could really take any team, even Rangers, Washington. I wouldn't think you're the craziest person if you'd said Washington Capitals are going to beat the Rangers in the first round, right? But after all the analysis I did and looking at matchups and reviewing some of my game notes from when teams played each other, this is what I came up with. And after I went through and I was like, wow, I picked really all the top seeds and the top seeds on the top seeds. So at the end of the day, I have the New York Rangers beating the Florida Panthers. Florida Panthers, I think that physical brand of hockey is starting to take a toll on them. You can see it. And I think after 3 rounds of playoffs, a round against Tampa is going to be physical. It's going to fatigue the team. Same thing with Boston. I don't know if they can sustain a 3rd round of that. I think they fall to the New York Rangers. But this is a matchup I would absolutely love to see. I think this would be one of the best matchups, maybe Carolina, Florida, in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think would be a lot of fun. But I got the Rangers going to the Stanley Cup. Let's go to the Central Division. Dallas, Vegas. This is a team you could take. You could take either, and there wouldn't be a wrong answer. both of these teams, three of the four favorite teams to make it to the Stanley or to win a Stanley Cup are in the Central Division, right? Got Dallas, Vegas, Colorado, I guess is a favorite, and Edmonton, right? I don't want to hear it from you Vancouver fans, right? But Dallas, Vegas, really intriguing. Vegas should get Mark Stone back, but I think Dallas, a premier offensive team and premier defensive team, and they have if playoff Jake Ottinger shows up, they're going to be really difficult to beat. And we'll talk about the DeBoer curse, the coach of the Stars, but I still think Dallas is the better team, but I don't think there's a clear cut. This is the right team to pick. I picked Dallas to win the President's Trophy, to be one of the best teams in the NHL, and I think they were my pick for the Stanley Cup this year. That kind of was what helped me make that decision. But I also do think Dallas is a little better offensively and a little better defensively, and has playoff Jake Ottinger. They have that goaltender that can carry them through the playoffs. Whereas Vegas is Logan Thompson. Is Aiden Hill back? He was injured for a bit. Right? Are you sticking with Logan Thompson? What if he struggles in the playoffs? Who do you go to then? Right? There are questions there for Vegas. I don't really have those questions for Dallas. Next up, Winnipeg, Colorado. I'm picking Winnipeg. Winnipeg first is on an absolute tear. I think they're 8-2 in their last 10 games. 8-2, and they've won their last 8 games. So you got to think that winning streak is going to come to an end at some point in the first round. Right? They're not just going to win the next 25 games and finish the season with a 33 game win streak. That's not even correct. 25 games, 16 games to win. 16 plus 8 is 24. They're probably not going to win 24 games in a row. Quick math. But nonetheless, I have a lot of questions with Colorado. I have questions about their depth scoring. I still have questions about their second line, even with Casey Middlestat. It's looked better, but I still have questions. I have questions about their defense, right? Aside from the first line, McCarr, Taves, which looks good. Manson's been all right. Yeah, you have some solid pieces on defense, but it's about putting together a full defensive effort. And I think they can do it. I think they'll figure it out. But at the same time, how long until they figure it out? It could cost them a game or two, which could end up costing them the series, because Winnipeg is so good defensively and has Connor Hellebuck in net. They are so good in net. And they have scoring threats like Scheifele and Kyle Connor, and so on, right? My question is Winnipeg going to play Logan Stanley? Because they really shouldn't play Logan Stanley. That dude's a pylon. That's a side note. Probably a good human, but definitely a pylon. And he likes to poke other teams' goalies, so no love for Logan Stanley on this channel. I also have a question about Colorado's goaltending. Georgiev is fine, but he's not an elite level goalie. We saw Colorado win the Stanley Cup with Darcy Kemper in net, and I love Darcy Kemper, but he didn't play out of his mind in the Stanley Cup playoffs that year. So they can win with subpar goaltending, and I would classify Georgiev as a subpar goaltender. I don't have him in my top 15 goaltenders, or top 16, right? I don't have him in the top half of the league in terms of goaltenders. I think I have him lower. Maybe I'll do a video on my rankings of goalies, but I'm not very high on Georgiev. That's the point. So I think Winnipeg takes this series. Finishing up, Dallas, Winnipeg. Both teams very stout defensively. I think Winnipeg probably will win that defensive goaltending battle. I think Dallas's defense is a little overmatched in comparison to Winnipeg's, but Dallas has a lot more scoring potential than Winnipeg. So I'm picking Dallas to slay the Canadian Beast over there in Winnipeg. We're going down to the Pacific, Vancouver, Nashville. I think it's Vancouver. This could be an intriguing mashup. Both teams play very strong team defense. Both teams have pretty solid defense in general. Both teams have incredible goaltending, Demko versus Saros. I think it's going to come down to the offense, right? And there are some guys that can put the puck in the net for Nashville, and I think they'll show up. But at the same time, I think Vancouver is so deep in their scoring, they can roll three lines and not look out of place, right? And you can even roll four lines if you're Vancouver and not really have a problem. So I think Vancouver a little deep for offensively. I think defense pretty comparable. I might give the edge to Nashville, but goaltending too. That could be a big factor. If one of the two goalies stands on their heads, that could be the difference in the series. But just on paper, I think Vancouver is the better team. Edmonton, LA, we get another matchup. I'm picking Edmonton. I have a lot of questions about LA. They've been good lately. They got off to kind of a rough start-ish and have really quietly had a pretty solid season. I think they have a plus 40 goal differential, which is nothing to sneeze at. Plus 41. You're right, because they won last night's game, I think, in overtime against the Blackhawks. Excuse me. But I do have questions. I have questions somewhat on the blue line. I have questions about the depth scoring. I have questions on what is Pierre-Luc Dubois going to do in the playoffs, and is he going to slot in on that second line? Is he going to start as the third line center? I have a lot of questions. But for me, the biggest question with LA is their goaltending. Cam Talbot, is he your guy? Because he should not be your guy. He's had a pretty solid season, sure. But he's very up and down. He's very streaky. And when he's at his best, when he's on his hottest tears he's had in his career, and I've witnessed many of them, he's still not elite enough to be the guy to carry you to the Stanley Cup Finals. So you're going to have to play very well in front of Cam Talbot. You're going to have to play team defense. And that's a pretty big concern for me. You can't rely on your goaltending if you're LA. Same with Edmonton, though, to be fair. Is Stuart Skinner your guy? Probably not. But this is a team with a lot of offensive firepower. McDavid will be coming out strong. I'm sure Draisaitl will be going hard on the ice. You have other guys too, Nugent Hopkins, and I could name off a few more, but I'm not going to. But I kind of don't hate the defense in Edmonton. I think it's fine. I think their system as a whole, since before Chuck Knobloch and with Chuck Knobloch, the current Chuck Knobloch, his name's not Chuck. I know his last name's Knobloch. Chuck Knobloch was a second baseman for the Yankees. I don't remember his first name. Dave Knobloch? I don't know. Knobloch. We're talking about Knobloch. In Edmonton, the coach. Anyway, disregard the Chuck. I totally forgot what I was saying. Defense. I do like Edmonton's defense. Right. Last coach, Woodcroft to Knobloch, I think there is still a large emphasis on being an offensive first organization. You want offense from your defensemen. You have Bouchard stepping up in the offensive zone quite a bit, but that leaves you kind of vulnerable in your own zone. So it could be a faster paced kind of high scoring series. We'll see. I'd anticipate it to be kind of like it was last year. But Edmonton is going to have to play somewhat responsible team defense and transition that to offense if they want to beat the Kings. And I think they will. I think they're capable of doing that. Finishing out the Pacific, Vancouver, Edmonton. I have Edmonton winning this. I just don't have any faith in Vancouver. They're so up and down. They'll have Demko. On paper, concerning what they've done this year, they look very good. I don't know. I have questions about Vancouver. I think Edmonton with McDavid, with Draisaitl, they get a couple power plays a game, or they get 2 or 3 power plays a game. They're probably going to score on 1 or 2 of those. And that could be a difference maker in the series, especially if Edmonton decides to play pretty responsible team defense. I think this is Edmonton's to lose. But again, you can make a case for any of them. So this is where, this is the first matchup where the top seed does not win. Crazy. I promise I did not plan it like that. So then we got Edmonton, Dallas. Now I think, like I've said before, I'm high on Dallas. Probably a little too high on Dallas. But I think Dallas can match the offensive firepower of Edmonton. Dallas has scored 298 goals this year. Edmonton 294. So pretty close. You factor in if McDavid played a couple more games than he did due to injury. They're probably around the same, like right on par with goals for the season. So I think Dallas can match the offense. When it comes to defense, though, we'll see. Edmonton, respectfully, hasn't really played terrible defense this year again. But for me, the question is, can Jake Ottinger continue to be playoff Jake Ottinger into round 3? We've seen him fizzle off the past few years in the playoffs. Once you get past that first round, maybe second round, he starts to fizzle off. But so we'll see. That's my big question. And then you also have the coach of the Dallas Stars. He'll make it past the first round, but he usually loses in the second or third rounds. Never quite making it to the Stanley Cup. I don't know what it is, but it's very consistent with DeBoer, the coach. So questions. This could be a year for a Canadian team because you have three pretty strong candidates. Vancouver, Edmonton, Winnipeg, all could. I have 3 of the 4 teams, and it's round 2 being Canadian teams. I guess I didn't even realize that. Nonetheless, I got Dallas playing the Rangers. I think if Dallas makes it to the Stanley Cup Finals, I think they're gonna win it. I think Dallas has some of those guys that, given the chance to play in a Stanley Cup Final, will show up a little more, right? You'll have guys like Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, probably given a little extra effort than they have. Maybe resulting in a couple more goals, which could result in a win for Dallas. I picked Dallas in 6. I don't really have an answer as to why. But again, my question is going to be: is Shesterkin going to be fantastic in the playoffs, or is he gonna kind of be a good but not great goalie, or maybe a great but not elite goalie in the playoffs? Yeah. So that's my bracket. I'm sorry this is the most disappointing bracket I've ever done. I promise I don't ever really pick the top seeds. I usually have the top seeds losing in the first round, unless you're the Bruins from last year where I pick you to win the Stanley Cup because you're just an absolute wagon and then you lose to Florida. So there's that. That's it. For the record, I really don't like Dallas. I'm not a Dallas fan. I grew up a Bruins fan back when I was growing up and going into high school and college. Dallas Bruins games there would just be a lot of fist throwing, a lot of penalty minutes. These teams did not like each other. Right? It's the old Minnesota North Stars, and Boston Bruins rivalry-ish thing. So I don't want to see Dallas win. I also don't want to see New York win because I'm a Boston kid at the end of the day. But I think these are the 2 best teams in the NHL, and I think both of them have a pretty strong case to make to be in, if not win the Stanley Cup. And you can really pick any team on this board, and yeah, you might be right. It's cool because any matchup could result in any team winning. So I feel dumb for picking all the top seeds because first off, we know that's not going to happen. We know there are going to be more than one top seed knocked off in every matchup, right? And there are going to be upsets that nobody really saw or predicted. Like if the Islanders beat the Hurricanes, it really could happen. I think the Islanders probably a little undervalued in terms of what they could do. Patrick Waugh behind the bench, pretty solid at getting the best out of his team. He always has, and he'll continue to do that. Kind of innovative as well behind the bench. He's the one guy that'll pull the goalie with 10 minutes left in the game, right? just crazy, but it works. They practice that. They practice the 6-on-5. It's so you never know if you pick the Islanders to beat the Hurricanes and Rangers, that could happen, right? Capitals. I could see a scenario where the Capitals beat the New York Rangers in the first round. But again, my analysis is players and trends and all this stuff, and it's not. I mean, it's thorough. It's a thorough analysis, but it's not great in terms of predicting results because I'm never even close to right. So I picked Dallas this year. I think the last 3 years, my Stanley Cup winner has been eliminated in the very first round. So Dallas, obviously playing Vegas, could get eliminated in the first round. I'd say they're more likely to get eliminated in the first round than Boston, Boston or Toronto. I don't know. Never mind. I don't even know where I was going with that. But that's my bracket. Let me know who you have in the Stanley Cup. Let me know of any upsets you have. Yeah, that's all I got. Any insight you got, please share it. I appreciate you. Take care, right?